There is one topic, non-Champions League topic, we should discuss now. It was the news, big news story from La Liga, certainly this week, which is that the proposed La Liga fixture that was supposed to be between Barcelona and Villarreal, supposed to be in Miami, and it was controversial to say the very least, has now been called off. There's mixed feelings about that in Spain. From what I understand, some people think, well, hang on a second, the La Liga is in competition with the Premier League, and what should they do? Go out in the world and, go west, my son, go west. However, it didn't go down well, not least with the fans and some of the players. Well, I understand that some of the players are saying, look, we didn't mean that we should never go with a La Liga fixture elsewhere, but just the way that this was rolled out is the problem. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I mean, look, this has been in the offing for some time. In 2018, La Liga signed a deal with a company called Relevant in North America. The idea was to take La Liga out there. They signed that deal, I think it was a 15-year deal. And since then, there's been multiple attempts to set up a game. I think the first failed one was Girona a year later, and then there's been 4 or 5 other attempts to take this game across there. Now, for whatever reason, it's never happened, and it's never got as close as it has got this past week, to the point of it actually being announced. It gets announced, and it all blows up instantly. The manner of how it is blown up is what's rubbed everybody up the wrong way. So people are already angry at the fact that, there's 2 sides to this. You've got your gatekeepers who want to keep the game in Spain and for the fans there. Completely, it's kind of where I'm at personally on things. It should stay there. And then obviously you've got people like Javier Tebas, head of the league, who wants to take La Liga abroad. He wants to earn some money and grow La Liga, make it a big brand. The Premier League's always the bar for every single league around the world. Everybody wants to be as big as the Premier League. He has been desperate to get this happening, but it's not the case, and now it's not going to happen. And I still think it will get over the line at some point. I'm not saying in this season. I think at some point it will get across the line because the Liga, it's found itself very hard to promote across the world. I think they had a period with Messi and Ronaldo at Real Madrid and Barcelona that they were marketed really well. They were coining it. They were the only league that everybody talked about. Clasico was the biggest game on the planet. Since then, it's absolutely shifted over to the Premier League. All the big players just about have gone there. Obviously, there's been a few exceptions. But in terms of marketing, the Premier League's just a different beast. Spain wants to be that beast as well. And particularly Villarreal, who are meant to be Barcelona's opponent in this game, are incensed at how it has been handled.
How they particularly have been treated in this.
How they've been treated.
Because they're the smaller party, aren't they?
The announcement that the game was off was during a Villarreal game. And they were like, what is going on? There's a picture of Roy, who's the president of Villarreal, taking a phone call during the game in the stands, clearly being notified that this is not happening. It's astounding. And Villarreal always wanted, they said, any money that we get from this, we want certain conditions. We want travel provided for our fans, free of charge, tickets. They want money coming back to reimburse fans who could have gone to that game and such. All fair and well. They thought these things were agreed, and then now it is completely it dissipated, and they are probably going to press ahead with see if they can get some money out of this in terms of attacking La Liga and going after La Liga.
Andy, I wonder if, and as David said, this isn't the first time that they've tried to make this work. I wonder if this is a question of representing, and that each time you represent the project, you get a little bit closer to getting over the line.
I guess you talked about the way it's presented, and I think that's absolutely right. And I think it always felt like La Liga would be sort of good ground to start off a project like this, because obviously it's highly controversial and justifiably so, having games from like regular season games from a big European football league abroad. But it always felt like if you're going to do it anywhere, you're going to do it La Liga, because you think, okay, Premier League has everything it wants in terms of marketing and expansion. that doesn't mean that I don't think that means they wouldn't react to it if you started having Spanish and Italian games, because of course there's still the possibility of, and it's still slated to be in Perth, Western Australia, the game between Milan and Como.
Oh, Milan it was, yeah.
In February. But it's never happening in Germany. Like, it's absolutely never happening in Germany.
Because of the way the clubs are owned.
The fans, the institutions
are
never
it's owned, and the culture, the fan culture there.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas I think that's the difference with Spain, because fans have been walked over, match-going fans have been walked over for years and years and years. That's really, I think, why this deal even got signed in the first place.
Remember the protest over here for the Super League? Chelsea fans all took to the stadium and such, and other clubs did as well. They were completely against it. That culture exists in Germany, in England, in Spain. Look, there's some great fans there, and away fans who do travel, but there isn't that culture that exists in Germany and England for away day culture, shall we say?
And I think that sense of like what's collectively good for us, which I think Germany is better at than England. But funnily enough, English fans really stepped up when it came to the Super League, as David said. So that was a massive difference. Look, I think the interesting thing is, whereas we should be thinking about the fans first when we think of a matter like this, the reason that this has happened, the reason that this has been called off, isn't the fans, it's the players.
Yeah.
And the fact is, the players, if fans in England woke up to the power they had because of what happened in their role in stopping the Super League, I think players are waking up to the fact that if they come together for a common cause, and it's difficult because football's a team sport, but it's a team sport where everyone's very focused on the individual. And elite players, with the financial position that they're in, they haven't really had the need to effectively unionise. Obviously, they're all in unions, but to actively unionise, I think that's changing because of the calendar. And all the complaints that you've had from when you go back to Rabiot, Frankie de Jong, when this first announced, going back several weeks, they're like, well, look at the way the schedule is. And now we're expected to fly out pointlessly several thousand miles in the middle of the season. And it's interesting because when Real Madrid put their official statement out about the distortion of the competition, now that is a theme that Thibaut Courtois ran with when he talked about it this week. Now, Courtois is always important. We talked about what a great goalkeeper he is before. He's really important in something like this because he's outspoken, he's articulate, he never stops talking.
He's Belgian.
That is definitely part of it. And I think it was interesting because he started off talking about it being a distortion of the competition and you have 19 games at home, 19 games away, etc. But then he talked about the schedule. And then he talked about the sort of person Javier Tebas is, which was quite personal. Danny Carvajal, one of his senior teammates.
I was about to say, Carvajal's, I thought Carvajal's statement was brutal. He put up an Instagram story that literally said, "Hello, Mr. Tebas," and he tagged Tebas in this as well. And he said, "Breaking the rules is adulterating the competition." And then he left a few more lines as well. And he said, "There'll be a stain on your competition if the match goes ahead." And he signed it off, "Good afternoon." Incredible. And we've got to remember here as well, and let's go back to Tebas here for a second, because we need to focus on him, because he's the one who wants this to happen. He's the one who's pushing this. He is, there's word about that he's potentially going to go after the players who have spoken out about it. David Agantho, who's the head of the AFE, which is the players' union that represents the players. He's hinted as such and said Tebas might go after them. And look, there was a league-wide protest here. And La Liga cut away from the protest. They went to the exterior of the stadiums. So they had a protest in the Real Madrid game at the Carlos Tartiere. They said they said on the TV screen it was a protest for peace. It wasn't a protest for peace. It was a protest at what Tebas and La Liga are trying to do. So the players are completely against this.
Yeah, just remind us what the protest was, because I found that fascinating. It was kind of almost a silent protest in a way.
Yeah. It was just them on the field, but again, it was those in the stadium who could see it outside. The TV pictures around the league cut to the outside of stadiums, and they just put a little tag at the bottom saying there's a protest for peace going on.
Yeah, drone shot from the top.
Yeah. Which is extraordinary.
It's an amazing gesture for players, really, to say, right, we're not going to play for the first 15 seconds.
Yeah,
That is amazing, because 15 seconds is like, it's like if there's a 3 second or a 4 second lull in conversation, which, trust us listeners, you're never going to get on this show.
Of course
but
not.
I think if there's a 4 or 5 second lull in a conversation, it feels like a lifetime. And after the whistle goes and there's no football, it feels like it's going to last forever. It is something that's really eloquent. And when you look at those players from Real Madrid coming out and saying those things afterwards, and in fact, Courtois followed it up after the Juventus game last night. So after this decision has been taken to call off staging Villarreal, Barcelona and Miami, Courtois, it was like he was making his pitch for president. He was saying, well, if La Liga thinks it's really the best league in the world, it doesn't need to go anywhere, does it? It just needs people to come here. And the other line that he said, which was, again, very pointed towards Tebas, is he said, well, look, we can't be in a situation in this league where clubs have to pull off miracles to register players.
Yeah,
because of course we're thinking of Barcelona there, and of course there's a bit of pre-Classico needle there. But also, I think you look at other clubs that are less publicised because they're under the shadow of Barcelona, and you've had Atletico Madrid having to do salary cap gymnastics, like going back into last season.
Getafe. Bloody Getafe, who don't buy players. They're having trouble.
Sevilla, you look at where Sevilla have been. And really, for players to come out, and obviously they're upset about the schedule, and they're upset about extra things being added, extra obligations being added, extra travel being added without them being consulted, and they're right to be. But for someone as eloquent as that to start poking holes in the brand, that is the last thing that they want. So I think really, maybe it doesn't take them close to a resolution, but it takes them closer to the absolute need for discussion.
It's the transparency. The transparency is the word what keeps coming up from the players. So the players are against it in its current guise. But if they're all sat down around the table with the AFE, certain player representatives as well, and it's discussed through, then they'll give across their concerns, like Andy's mentioned, the travel, the fans and such. It could feasibly happen. You know, if you are pro it can happen. But it has to be done in the right manner. It's the manner of how everything has been handled that people are disappointed.
And I think that's the thing. It's always been squared. And what's worked for various football authorities is it's felt like the fans and the players are on opposite sides because they're rich beyond the imagination of most of us supporters, so they don't understand us. They're on a different planet. But actually, we're kind of all batting for the same thing, because if they get their rest, they'll play better, we'll get better football, we'll get better value for money. And I think people are starting to think about that a little more, and people are starting to realise that even if we are in different financial positions, players and supporters actually do have a lot of common interests in terms of safeguarding the game.
Listen, at risk of falling out with both of you, I blame it on the NBA. I know you both love your basketball. No, I do.
Look, if you
Harlem Globetrotters.
If you want to come to the O2 with me in January, just give me a shout.
I do, actually, and thank you for that. I hope you're paying.